July 4, 1987, 3:47 p.m. The security camera in the Grandview Towers apartment building, Chicago, captures two identical 8-year-old boys entering elevator number 3 on the 7th floor. Tommy Harper wears a red Chicago Bulls t-shirt. His twin brother Billy wears an identical shirt in blue. They're laughing, pushing each other playfully, racing to press the lobby button first. The elevator doors close at 3 hours 47 minutes and 23 seconds p.m. This grainy black and white footage becomes the most analyzed piece of evidence in Chicago Police Department history. The elevator arrives at the lobby 47 seconds later. The doors open. The elevator is completely empty. 36 years later, on October 15, 2023, construction foreman Mike Kowalski stands in a concealed space between the building's walls, his helmet light illuminating two small skeletons still wearing fragments of red and blue t-shirts. His body camera captures his horrified whisper, "Control, we found them, the Harper twins. They've been here all along. But this doesn't make sense. This space, it shouldn't exist. According to the original blueprints, this is solid concrete." The Grandview Towers stood like a concrete giant on Chicago's South Side, 23 floors of affordable housing built in 1971. By 1987, it housed 400 families, mostly single parents working multiple jobs to survive. The hallways echoed with children's voices, cooking smells from different cultures mixed in the air vents, and everyone knew everyone else's business. It was the kind of place where kids played in the corridors when it was too dangerous to play outside, where mothers looked out for each other's children, where the elevator breaking down was a weekly occurrence. Tommy and Billy Harper were identical in appearance, but opposite in personality. Tommy, older by 4 minutes, was the leader, hibis bold, curious, always pushing boundaries. Billy was the cautious one, the voice of reason, the one who remembered to leave notes for their mother when they went exploring. Their mother, Sandra Harper, worked nights at Cook County Hospital as a nurse's aide, days at a grocery store as a cashier. The boys had learned to take care of themselves and each other. Neighbors would later testify that you never saw one twin without the other. They were like a single person split into two bodies. The building had a reputation even before the twins vanished. Residents talked about the 13th floor that wasn't supposed to exist. The building supposedly had no 13th floor for superstitious reasons, but sometimes the elevator would stop there anyway, opening to a dark hallway that shouldn't be there. There were stories of voices in the walls, of apartments where the dimensions didn't match the building's structure, of maintenance workers who'd gone into certain sections and come out refusing to ever go back. Marjorie Williams, who lived in 7B across from the Harper family in 7F, told investigators, "Those were good boys. They'd help with my groceries, check if I needed anything from the store. That 4th of July, they were excited because their mama had promised to take them to see the fireworks at Navy Pier when she got home from her shift. They were wearing their special matching shirts. Tommy always in red, Billy in blue, so people could tell them apart." The July 4th holiday meant most residents were either out at celebrations or having parties in their apartments. The surveillance system, newly installed after a series of break-ins, was only partially functional. Cameras in the elevators and lobby, but not on individual floors. The footage that existed would become the subject of frame-by-frame analysis by everyone from MIT physicists to conspiracy theorists. At 3:30 p.m., Sandra Harper called from the hospital to check on her boys. Billy answered, promised they were just playing in the hallway with other kids, would stay on their floor, and had already eaten the sandwiches he'd left. She told them she'd be home by 8 p.m. for the fireworks. It was the last time she'd hear their voices. Multiple witnesses saw the twins between 3:30 and 3:47 p.m. Robert Jackson from 7C saw them playing with a ball in the hallway. Maria Gonzalez from 7D heard them laughing outside her door. James Park from 7A noticed them looking out the window at the end of the hall watching the street festivities below. Everyone agreed the boys seemed normal, happy, excited about the evening's plans. At 3:45 p.m., 12-year-old Ashley Thompson was waiting for the elevator on the 10th floor when she heard the twins on the 7th floor calling for it. She held the door and pressed 7. The security footage shows her alone in the elevator going down, the doors opening on 7, and Tommy and Billy getting in. Ashley got off on the 5th floor to visit her friend. She was the last person to see them. The elevator footage is crystal clear despite its age. The twins enter at 3 hours 47 minutes and 16 seconds p.m. Tommy presses the L button for lobby. Billy makes bunny ears behind Tommy's head. They're both laughing. The elevator starts its descent. The floor indicator shows 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Lull. Normal descent time for the building's elevators 47 seconds. The timestamp when the doors open in the lobby, 3 hours 48 minutes and 3 seconds p.m. The elevator is absolutely empty. Security guard Frank Morrison was standing in the lobby when the elevator arrived. His testimony never wavered in 36 years. I was right there, maybe 10 feet from elevator 3. The doors opened and it was empty. Not unusual. Kids hit buttons and run all the time. Harper came down around 8:30 p.m. looking for her boys and we checked the tape. That's when we saw them get in on 7, but they never came out. The initial search was routine minage. Check the friends' apartments, the roof, the basement, the stairwells. As hours passed, and the twins didn't appear, concern grew to alarm. Then panic. Sandra Harper's screams echoed through the building. They wouldn't leave. They know I worry. Something's happened to my babies. By midnight, the Chicago Police Department had launched a full investigation. The elevator was taken out of service, examined inch by inch. No trap doors, no escape hatches, no way out, except the doors that were visible on camera, never opening between floors 7 and the lobby. The shaft was searched. Nothing. The mechanical room on top of the elevator car was pristine, untouched. Detective Carl Rodriguez, lead investigator, told reporters, "In 30 years of police work, I've never seen anything like this. We have clear footage of 2 children entering a confined space and seemingly vanishing into thin air. It's physically impossible, yet the evidence is indisputable." The building became a crime scene. Every apartment was searched. Every resident questioned. The twins' photos appeared on every news channel, every newspaper, every milk carton. America became obsessed with the impossible disappearance. How do 2 children vanish from a moving elevator? Engineers were brought in to examine the elevator system. Professor David Chen from Illinois Institute of Technology spent 3 days studying the mechanism. His conclusion: there is absolutely no way those children could have exited that elevator between floors without it being visible on camera or leaving physical evidence. Either the footage is fabricated, which our analysis proves it isn't, or something happened that defies our understanding of physics. The media dubbed it the Elevator Boys Mystery. Psychics claimed the twins had been transported to another dimension. UFO enthusiasts said it was alien abduction. Religious groups declared it a rapture event. But Sandra Harper just wanted her boys back. She moved out of apartment 7FX, but stayed in the building, taking an apartment on the 1st floor to be near where they'd vanished, convinced they were somehow still there. Strange things began happening after the disappearance. Residents reported hearing children's laughter in the elevator shafts. The security cameras would occasionally glitch, showing 2 small figures in the elevator that weren't really there. The elevator would sometimes stop on floors no one had pressed, doors opening to empty hallways. Maintenance worker Luis Martinez quit after claiming he'd heard voices calling for help from inside the walls. The investigation expanded. The FBI joined, suspecting kidnapping, despite the impossible evidence. The building's construction history was examined, built by Grandview Construction Company in 1971. The company had gone bankrupt in 1973 under suspicious circumstances. The original architect, Harold Brennan, had died in 1986, supposedly of a heart attack, though his wife claimed he'd been murdered because of what he knew about that building. Documents subpoenaed from city records revealed anomalies in the Grandview Tower's construction. The approved blueprints showed 23 floors with standard dimensions, but the actual building permits showed discrepancies, minus requests for 30% more concrete than the blueprints required, steel beams in places where they shouldn't be needed, and most mysteriously, elevator shafts that didn't match the official plans. A former construction worker, Anthony Torino, came forward in 1988. Dying of lung cancer, he told investigators, "That building ain't right. We built things that weren't on the plans. Hidden spaces. The boss, Mr. Carlisle, said it was for storage, but you don't need reinforced walls for storage. And the 13th floor? It exists. We built it. But then they sealed it up, made it disappear from the records." This led to the discovery that Grandview Construction had been a front for organized crime, specifically the Torino crime family, no relation to Anthony. They'd built hidden spaces in the building for storing contraband, mine dust, drugs, weapons, money. The 13th floor was their operations center. When the feds got close in 1973, they'd abandoned the building, sold it to the city for public housing, and destroyed most records of the hidden modifications. But even this revelation didn't explain how the twins vanished. The hidden spaces were accessible through concealed doors, not through solid elevator walls. Ground-penetrating radar found hollow spaces in the structure, but no way to access them without major demolition, which the city wouldn't authorize for a theory. Years passed, theories multiplied. Sandra Harper, aged decades in months, never stopping her search. She hired private investigators, consulted mediums, pleaded on national television. The elevator footage was analyzed by experts worldwide. Japanese engineers built a replica of the elevator to test theories. German physicists proposed quantum explanations. Nothing provided answers. Other residents moved out, frightened by the mystery and the building's increasingly sinister reputation. By 1995, Grandview Towers was half empty. By 2000, it was condemned, but it stood empty rather than being demolished, tied up in legal battles over ownership and insurance claims. Sandra Harper, now living with her sister, still visited monthly, standing in the decaying lobby, calling her boys names. In 2010, a urban explorer named Marcus Webb snuck into the abandoned building and live-streamed his exploration. In the basement, he found something that reignited interest in the case: construction documents hidden in a rusted filing cabinet. These papers, not destroyed with the others, showed the true layout of Grandview Towers. The building was honeycombed with hidden passages, false walls, and most importantly, a parallel elevator shaft that ran alongside the regular one. This shadow shaft, according to the documents, was connected to the main shaft by a rotating wall panel on the 7th floor. If someone knew exactly where to press, the wall would rotate, transferring passengers from one shaft to another. The mechanism was designed to be invisible, activated by pressure plates that looked like normal wall panels. It was how the crime family moved contraband without detection. Armed with this information, urban explorers and amateur detectives began infiltrating the building, searching for the mechanism. But the building was deteriorating, dangerous, and the city increased security after several injuries. The shadow shaft theory remained unproven, the twins still missing. Then came 2023. Grandview Towers, after decades of legal battles, was finally scheduled for renovation as part of an urban renewal project. The plan was to gut the building completely and rebuild it as mixed-income housing. Every wall would be torn down, every secret exposed. Mike Kowalski, the construction foreman, knew the building's history. His father had worked on the original construction and had told stories about the wrong things built into Grandview. When demolition began, Mike instructed his crew to document everything, especially anything unusual. On October 15, 2023, while removing walls on the 7th floor, worker Jason Martinez hit something unexpected with his sledgehammer. Instead of the hollow sound of drywall or the solid thud of concrete, there was an echo. Using a fiber optic camera, they discovered a narrow space between the real elevator shaft and what appeared to be a false wall. The space was about 3 feet wide, running the entire height of the building. Mike Kowalski entered the space, wearing full safety equipment and a body camera. What he found defied explanation. It was a complete parallel shaft with its own elevator car, frozen between the 7th and 6th floors. Inside the car were the remains of Tommy and Billy Harper, identified by the red and blue t-shirt fragments and dental records. They'd been there for 36 years. But the evidence raised more questions than it answered. The parallel elevator's power had been cut in 1973 when the crime family abandoned the building. It shouldn't have been operational in 1987. The rotating wall mechanism was rusted solid, hadn't moved in years. How had the twins entered a space that was theoretically impossible to access? The investigation reopened with new urgency. Modern forensic analysis revealed something the original investigation couldn't have known. The twins had been exposed to high levels of electromagnetic radiation consistent with being near powerful electrical equipment. Their remains showed no signs of violence. They'd apparently died of asphyxiation when the elevator car became stuck in the shaft with no ventilation. Further investigation of the parallel shaft revealed sophisticated electrical equipment, decades ahead of 1987 technology. There were magnetic field generators, capacitors that shouldn't have existed in the 1970s, and most bizarrely, what appeared to be an experimental transportation system based on electromagnetic manipulation. Dr. Sarah Chen, a physicist brought in to analyze the equipment, reached a startling conclusion. This isn't crime family technology. This is advanced experimental physics. Someone was using this building to test theories about electromagnetic transportation. The parallel elevator wasn't just for moving contraband mined, it was a prototype for something much more ambitious. Records from defunct government programs were declassified in 2023 under the Freedom of Information Act. Project Transit, a 1970s Defense Department initiative, had explored alternative transportation methods, including electromagnetic elevation and spatial displacement. The project had been run by Dr. Harold Brennan Meadus, the Grandview Towers architect, who died in 1986. Brennan had built a secret laboratory in his building, hidden among the crime family's modifications. When the criminals abandoned it, he'd continued his experiments in secret. His widow, now 94, finally broke her silence. Harold was obsessed with proving his theories about electromagnetic transportation. He said Grandview was his chance to test them, but something went wrong in 1986. He came home terrified, said he'd created something uncontrollable. He was going to destroy it all, but he died that night. The heart attack, I always wondered if it was really natural. The truth became clear through painstaking investigation. The twins hadn't vanished. They'd been transported. On July 4, 1987, residual electromagnetic fields from Brennan's abandoned experiments had activated when the twins pressed the elevator button in a specific sequence. Pure chance, the kind only children playing could achieve. The wall had rotated just long enough to transfer them to the parallel shaft, then sealed again. The parallel elevator, running on backup power from Brennan's hidden generators, had started moving but failed between floors. The twins had been trapped in a space no one knew existed, in an elevator no one knew was there. Behind walls everyone thought were solid. They'd called for help, pounded on the walls, but the sound-dampening insulation Brennan had installed to hide his experiments had sealed their fate. Sandra Harper, now 73, was brought to the site. When she saw her boys' remains, still side by side as they'd lived, she collapsed. Her first words when she recovered were, "They didn't leave me, they tried to come home. My babies tried to come home." The discovery exposed a massive cover-up. The city had known about some modifications to the building, but had hidden them to avoid liability. Government records showed Project Transit had violated numerous safety regulations. The crime family's involvement had been covered up to protect ongoing investigations. Layer upon layer of secrets had buried the truth about Grandview Towers. The parallel shaft contained more than just the twins. Further exploration found the remains of 3 construction workers who disappeared in 1971, a maintenance worker missing since 1983, and evidence of at least 6 other people who'd vanished in the building over the years. All had accidentally triggered the electromagnetic transportation system and been trapped in the hidden spaces. The elevator footage from 1987 was reanalyzed with this new knowledge. At 3 hours, 47 minutes, and 19 seconds, 3 seconds after the twins entered, there's a single frame where the image distorts, electromagnetic interference from the transportation event. It had always been there, dismissed as tape degradation. Now it was proof of what had happened. The building's other mysteries suddenly made sense. The 13th floor that appeared and disappeared, electromagnetic fields affecting perception and electronics, the voices in the walls, people trapped in the hidden spaces, the impossible dimensions, parallel construction hidden behind false walls. Grandview Towers had been a physics experiment, hidden inside a crime front, hidden inside public housing. The legal ramifications were staggering. Families of everyone who disappeared in the building filed lawsuits. The Department of Defense faced questions about illegal experimentation on civilians. The city of Chicago was investigated for negligence. The construction companies involved, though mostly defunct, had their records subpoenaed, revealing a network of illegal building modifications throughout the city. Dr. Chen's analysis of Brennan's equipment revealed he'd been close to a breakthrough in electromagnetic transportation. His notes, found hidden in the parallel shaft, showed equations that modern physicists recognized as precursors to current quantum transportation theories. He'd been decades ahead of his time, but his secrecy and the building's criminal connections had turned innovation into tragedy. The twins were finally laid to rest on November 1st, 2023. All Saints' Day. The funeral drew thousands. The small coffins, one draped in red, one in blue, were carried by men who'd been children in the building in 1987, who'd played with Tommy and Billy, who'd spent 36 years wondering what happened to their friends. Sandra Harper spoke at the service. "My boys were adventurous. They loved mysteries, loved exploring. In a terrible way, they solved the biggest mystery of all, what was wrong with that building. They didn't mean to, they were just playing, but their discovery has brought justice to so many families. My babies are heroes, even if they never meant to be." The renovation of Grandview Towers was halted. The building was designated a memorial site. The parallel shaft was preserved as evidence and as a monument to those who died there. A museum was created on the first floor, displaying Brennan's equations, the crime family's modifications, and most prominently, photos of all the victims, with Tommy and Billy Harper at the center. The elevator where it all happened was restored and is displayed behind glass. Visitors can see the exact spot where two 8-year-old boys entered and, through a terrible chain of secrets and coincidences, vanished into a hidden world within the walls. The placard reads, Tommy and Billy Harper, aged 8, entered here July 4, 1987, found October 15, 2023. They never left the building. They just went somewhere no one knew existed. The security footage from 1987 runs on a continuous loop on a screen nearby. Every 47 seconds, visitors watch two identical boys enter an elevator, laughing, playing, unaware they're about to become the center of one of America's greatest mysteries. The timestamp freezes at 3 hours 47 minutes and 23 seconds as the doors close, then jumps to 3 hours 48 minutes and 3 seconds as they open on an empty car, the 40 seconds in between representing 36 years of questions. The case led to building code reforms nationwide. Every structure over 5 stories now requires complete electromagnetic scanning. Hidden spaces must be registered and regularly inspected. The Harper Protocol ensures that any report of someone disappearing in a building triggers immediate comprehensive structural scanning. The scientific community studied Brennan's work intensively. His theories on electromagnetic transportation, though flawed in execution, contained genuine innovations. The Brennan equations are now taught in advanced physics courses, with the tragic caveat of what happens when science operates without oversight or safety protocols. Mike Kowalski, who found the twins, struggled with the discovery. I have kids their age, thinking about those boys trapped in that elevator, calling for help that never came. It haunts me, but at least their mother knows now. At least she can stop searching. The parallel shaft yielded one final secret. In the elevator car with the twins was a notebook. Billy, the cautious one, had written a message in his careful 8-year-old handwriting. We are stuck. The elevator won't move. Tommy says someone will find us. I hope it's soon. Mom will worry. If you find this, please tell her we love her and we're sorry we got lost. We just wanted to see the fireworks. Billy and Tommy Harper, apartment 7F. Below this, in Tommy's messier writing, Billy is scared, but I told him superheroes always escape, so we will too. Someone help, please. The buttons don't work. It's getting hard to breathe. Happy 4th of July. The notebook's last entry. Barely legible. Mom? The discovery changed how America viewed missing persons cases. If 2 boys could be trapped for 36 years just feet from where hundreds of people lived, how many other missing people were simply hidden in plain sight? The FBI created a new division specifically for investigating structural anomalies in missing persons cases. By 2024, the Grandview effect had led to the discovery of 17 other cases where people had vanished into hidden spaces in buildings. Some were construction accidents covered up. Others were, like the Harper twins, victims of secret modifications. 3 were even found alive, having been trapped in bunker-like spaces with water and food supplies. Sandra Harper became an advocate for missing children, using her settlement money to fund searches for other vanished kids. She moved into a small house where she could see the Grandview Towers Memorial from her window. I waited 36 years to bring my boys home, she said. Now they'll never leave again. I can see them from here. The electromagnetic equipment from the parallel shaft was moved to a secure government facility for study. Some scientists believed Brennan had actually achieved limited teleportation, that the twins had been moved through space in a way that wasn't understood. Others argued it was simply a mechanical malfunction of the rotating wall. The debate continues. The Chicago Tribune ran a retrospective on the case. interviewing everyone who'd lived in the building in 1987. Many admitted they'd heard things, seen things, but hadn't reported them for fear of being thought crazy. The maintenance worker who'd quit after hearing voices said, "I heard them. I swear I heard children calling for help, but it sounded like it was coming from inside the concrete. Everyone said I was losing it. I've lived with that guilt for 36 years." Ashley Thompson, the 12-year-old who'd ridden the elevator with the twins just before they vanished, now 48, broke down during her interview. "I was the last person to see them. I've replayed that moment thousands of times. If I'd stayed in the elevator, gone to the lobby with them, would it have happened? Would my extra weight have prevented whatever malfunction occurred? Or would I have vanished too?" The building's security guard from 1987, Frank Morrison, died in 2020. But his daughter revealed he'd left a confession. Dad knew something was wrong with that building. He'd seen the blueprints in the office that showed things that weren't supposed to be there, but his boss told him to keep quiet or lose his job. "We were barely surviving as it was." He chose his family's security over those boys' lives. It destroyed him. Urban explorers who'd investigated the building over the years came forward with footage they'd never released, showing anomalies they'd captured but couldn't explain. Shadows moving in impossible directions, electronic equipment malfunctioning in specific spots, temperature drops that didn't make sense, all of it corresponding to the locations of the hidden passages. The scientific investigation continued to yield disturbing results. The electromagnetic fields in the building had been slowly increasing since 1971, fed by some unknown power source deep in the structure. If the building hadn't been renovated when it was, physicists calculated that within 5 years the fields would have been strong enough to affect the entire block. Dr. Chen's final report was chilling. Brennan created something he didn't fully understand. The electromagnetic transportation system was still active, still drawing power, still potentially functional. The Harper twins weren't the last victims. They were the last ones we found. Without the renovation, there would have been more. The revelation led to the scanning of every building Brennan had designed. 7 other structures in Illinois showed electromagnetic anomalies. One, an office building in Springfield, had a hidden floor that didn't appear on any blueprint. When opened, it contained a fully equipped laboratory, abandoned since Brennan's death, with equipment still humming with power. The Harper case became required study in architecture schools, engineering programs, and criminal justice courses. It represented the perfect storm of corporate crime, government overreach, scientific ambition, and tragic coincidence. Professors used it to teach about the importance of oversight, transparency, and the dangers of unchecked experimentation. In 2024, Hollywood announced a film about the Harper twins, but Sandra Harper refused to sell the rights. "My boys aren't entertainment. They were real children who died frightened and alone because adults kept secrets. If their story is told, it should be as a warning, not a thriller." Instead, she worked with documentarians to create an educational series about missing children and the importance of building safety. Every episode ended with the same message: Tommy and Billy Harper were found because someone finally looked where no one thought to look. Who else is waiting to be found? The Grandview Towers Memorial receives thousands of visitors annually. Many leave toys at the base of the twins' memorial. Others bring their own children, explaining the importance of safety and truth. The elevator shaft has become a peculiar shrine, with people claiming they can still hear children's laughter on quiet nights. Paranormal investigators remain fascinated by the case, despite the scientific explanations. Some insist there are elements that can't be explained by electromagnetic fields and hidden passages. They point to the multiple witnesses who saw the twins in the building after their disappearance. the fact that the rotating wall shouldn't have worked after years of disuse, and the unexplained power source that kept Brennan's equipment running for decades. The families of other victims found in the building created a support group. They met monthly, sharing stories of their loved ones, supporting each other through the delayed grief of finding answers decades later. Sandra Harper became their unofficial leader, the woman who'd never given up, who'd proved that sometimes the impossible answer is the right one. In a final twist, investigators discovered that Harold Brennan had a son, David, who'd become a physicist like his father. David Brennan, now 60, came forward with his father's private journals. They revealed that Harold had successfully achieved electromagnetic transportation of objects in his hidden laboratory. He'd been planning to announce his discovery when he realized the crime family was using his building for illegal activities. Fearful that his work would be stolen or misused, Harold had tried to dismantle everything, but the electromagnetic fields had become self-sustaining, feeding off the building's electrical grid and even drawing power from unknown sources. His final entry, dated the day before his death: "I've created something I can't control. It's alive in the walls now. God forgive me for what I've built." This revelation suggested that the Harper twins' disappearance wasn't entirely accidental. The building itself, infused with decades of electromagnetic experimentation, had become a kind of trap, randomly activating and capturing anyone who triggered the right conditions. They weren't the first, and if the building had remained standing and occupied, they wouldn't have been the last. The case officially closed in 2024, but its impact continues. Every missing child case now includes structural analysis of their last known location. Building inspectors use electromagnetic scanners as standard equipment. The phrase, "check the walls," has become standard protocol in missing persons investigations. Sandra Harper gave her final interview on the 37th anniversary of her son's disappearance. Sitting in the memorial garden, created where apartment 7F used to be, she said, "I always knew my boys didn't run away. A mother knows. They were good boys who loved each other, loved me, loved life. They just went exploring in the wrong place at the wrong time, but they've saved so many others. Every child found because of new search protocols, every dangerous building discovered because of new inspections. That's Tommy and Billy's legacy." She pointed to the memorial wall where hundreds of photos showed missing children who'd been found using methods developed from the Harper case. "My boys are gone, but look at all these children who came home because of them." Tommy and Billy Harper didn't just disappear. They illuminated the darkness where lost children hide. They became the light that guides others home. The Harper twins' story ends where it began, Midas with security footage. But now, instead of showing their disappearance, monitors at the memorial display a continuous feed from cameras throughout the renovated building, ensuring that no space remains hidden, no child can vanish unseen. The timestamp runs continuously, a reminder that every second counts when someone goes missing. At exactly 3:47 p.m., every July 4th, for 47 seconds, by the time it took for the elevator to travel from the 7th floor to the lobby, visitors stand still, remembering two 8-year-old boys who entered an elevator expecting to see fireworks, and instead became the spark that exposed decades of secrets. The rebuilt Grandview Towers opened in 2025 as affordable housing once again, but with a difference. Every floor has emergency buttons that trigger immediate structural scans. Every wall is transparent to ground-penetrating radar. Every space is accounted for, measured, and monitored. It's the safest building in Chicago, a fortress against secrets. In the lobby, 2 child-height handprints are embedded in glass, one from a red shirt, one from blue. Below them, an inscription, "Tommy and Billy Harper, aged 8. They went exploring and got lost. 36 years later they were found, Because of them, we'll never stop looking. Because of them, we'll never stop finding. Because of them, no child will ever disappear in plain sight again. The scientific analysis of the Grandview Towers case continued to yield groundbreaking discoveries. In 2024, a team from CERN examined Brennan's equations and equipment, reaching a startling conclusion. Dr. Marie Dubois, quantum physicist, presented findings that shook the scientific community. Harold Brennan didn't just create an electromagnetic elevator system. He accidentally created what we now call a temporal pocket, means a space where time moves differently. The twins didn't just spend hours in that elevator. From their perspective, based on cellular degradation patterns, they experienced approximately 3 days before succumbing to dehydration. This revelation was devastating for Sandra Harper, who realized her boys had suffered longer than anyone thought. But it also explained something that had puzzled investigators. The notebook entries seemed too numerous for the short time they were supposedly trapped. Billy had written dozens of messages, drawn pictures, even attempted to document what was happening to them in childish but precise detail. Page 3 of Billy's notebook. Tommy says, "We're on an adventure like the comics, but I want to go home. The buttons don't work and the walls feel funny, like buzzing." Page 7. "We tried screaming for so long my throat hurts." Tommy's too. "We can hear sounds sometimes but no one hears us back." Page 15. "Tommy made up a game where we pretend we're astronauts stuck in space waiting for rescue. I don't like this game." Page 23. "I'm so thirsty. Tommy gave me his last piece of gum, but it doesn't help. Mom always says drink water when you're thirsty." Page 31. "Tommy won't wake up all the way. I keep shaking him but he just mumbles." Last page. "If someone finds this, please tell Mom we tried to come home. Tommy is sleeping. I'm going to sleep too. Maybe when we wake up we'll be home." The discovery that the twins had experienced days rather than hours led to a complete re-examination of everyone who disappeared in the building. Forensic analysis of the other remains showed similar temporal distortions. The construction workers from 1971 showed signs of having aged several months in what should have been days. The maintenance worker from 1983 had grown a beard that would have taken weeks, not the hours he was missing. Dr. Chen's team discovered that the electromagnetic fields didn't just transport people through space. They created pockets of altered time. Brennan had stumbled onto something that modern physicists were only beginning to understand. His accidental discovery of temporal manipulation predated official research by 40 years. The Department of Defense finally declassified all Project Transit files in 2024. They revealed that Brennan had been recruited specifically because of his theories about electromagnetic manipulation of space-time. The government had funded the construction of Grandview Towers as a secret laboratory, using the crime family's money laundering as cover for the massive funding required. When the experiment got out of control, everyone involved had conspired to bury it. Colonel James Patterson, retired, broke his silence. "We knew Brennan was onto something revolutionary. The ability to manipulate time and space would give America an insurmountable advantage. We didn't care about the risks to civilians. The building was supposed to be condemned after the experiments, but bureaucracy and cover-ups left it occupied. Those twins died because of our negligence." This admission triggered a congressional investigation. The hearings, broadcast live, revealed the extent of government experiments on unwitting civilians. Grandview Towers was one of 17 buildings across America where similar experiments had been conducted. Each had a history of unexplained disappearances. The investigation led to the Temporal Crimes Act of 2024, making it a federal offense to conduct experiments that could affect space-time without extensive safety protocols and public disclosure. The Harper twins became the face of the legislation, their school photos displayed during the congressional debates. Meanwhile, the renovation of Grandview Towers had uncovered more than just the parallel shaft. Workers found 17 additional hidden spaces, each containing evidence of Brennan's experiments. One room held dozens of clocks, all stopped at different times, some showing dates that hadn't happened yet. Another contained plants that had aged decades in what should have been years, their growth rings showing impossible patterns. The most disturbing discovery was a room labeled Observation Chamber in Brennan's hidden notes. Inside were hundreds of photographs and hours of film reels showing residents of the building going about their daily lives, unaware they were being studied. Brennan had been documenting the effects of long-term exposure to electromagnetic fields on unwitting test subjects. His notes on the Harper family were particularly detailed. He'd observed that Tommy and Billy seemed unusually synchronized, often moving in perfect unison without verbal communication. He theorized that twins were more susceptible to electromagnetic influence due to their biological similarities. His final note about them, dated June 1987, just weeks before they vanished. The Harper twins show strong field sensitivity, must ensure they don't access the vulnerable zones. But Brennan had died in 1986. His automated systems, still running on hidden power sources, had continued the experiment without human oversight. The building had become a massive, uncontrolled experiment, randomly affecting residents for decades. The psychological impact on survivors was profound. Residents, who'd lived in Grandview Towers, showed higher rates of temporal disorientation, losing hours, experiencing déjà vu, having memories of events that hadn't happened or forgetting ones that had. Support groups formed for Grandview survivors, people trying to piece together lives affected by temporal anomalies they hadn't understood. Marcus Rodriguez, who'd lived in apartment 12C from 1980 to 1990, came forward with disturbing evidence. He'd kept a journal that showed entries for dates that didn't exist: February 30th, November 31st. His handwriting, verified as authentic, described events on these impossible dates in detail. "I always thought I was going crazy," he said. "Now I know the building was bending time itself." The twins' case sparked a revolution in missing persons investigations. The Harper Protocol required investigators to consider not just where someone might be, but when. Several cold cases were solved when investigators realized victims had experienced temporal displacement minus they'd been returned to the wrong time, appearing years before or after they'd vanished, often dismissed as cases of mistaken identity. In Boston, a child who disappeared in 2010 was found when investigators realized a homeless man who'd appeared in 1998 claiming to be a lost child was telling the truth. Temporal displacement had sent him 12 years into the past. DNA testing confirmed his identity. He'd aged normally from 1998 onward, making him an adult by the time his child self vanished. The Harper twins' personal belongings, recovered from the parallel elevator, became the subject of intense study. Their digital watches, cheap Casio models common in 1987, showed different times despite being synchronized when they'd left their apartment. Tommy's showed July 7th, 11:43 p.m. Billy's showed July 5th, 2:17 a.m. They'd experienced time differently, even while trapped in the same space. Tommy's pockets contained evidence of their adventure, rocks he'd picked up that didn't exist in normal geology, appearing to be compressed from multiple temporal states, a Snickers bar wrapper that was simultaneously new and decades old, existing in quantum superposition until observed, a baseball card that showed statistics from games that wouldn't be played until 1992. These impossible objects, proved that the twins had somehow existed partially outside normal space-time. They'd been conscious and experiencing their environment even as they were temporally displaced. The horror of their experience, aware but unable to interact with the normal world, led to new protocols for detecting temporal anomalies in missing persons cases. The building's effect extended beyond its walls. Investigators discovered that everyone who'd lived in Grandview Towers showed chromosomal changes consistent with temporal stress. Their cells aged at inconsistent rates, some organs older than they should be, others younger. Sandra Harper, despite being 73, had the liver of a 50-year-old but the heart of an 80-year-old. This led to a health crisis, as former residents realized they'd been unknowingly experimented upon for years. Class action lawsuits were filed against the government, the construction companies, and Brennan's estate. The settlements, totaling $4.7 billion, established medical monitoring for all former residents and their descendants, as the genetic changes were heritable. The twins' story inspired a new field of study, MIT's temporal forensics. Universities established programs teaching investigators how to detect and analyze temporal crimes. The Harper case became the foundational study, with every aspect analyzed and reanalyzed as understanding of temporal mechanics grew. Dr. Billy Chen, no relation to Dr. Sarah Chen, a temporal forensics pioneer, made a breakthrough in 2025 by analyzing the electromagnetic patterns preserved in the building's structure. He could reconstruct a timeline of every temporal event that had occurred there. His work revealed that at least 40 people had experienced some form of temporal displacement in Grandview Towers, most minor enough to be dismissed as confusion or memory problems. But 3 cases stood out. In 1976, a maintenance worker named James Washington had reported losing a week. He'd entered a storage room on Monday and emerged on the following Monday, insisting only minutes had passed. In 1982, the entire 5th floor had experienced a repeat day where July 15th happened twice, though only a few residents noticed. In 1985, apartment 13F, which shouldn't have existed, had appeared for exactly 24 hours with a family inside, who claimed to have lived there for years, then vanished along with the apartment itself. These events had been dismissed as hallucinations, gas leaks, or hoaxes. Now they were understood as temporal failures in Brennan's system, previews of the catastrophic event that would claim the Harper twins. The investigation revealed that July 4, 1987, hadn't been random. The fireworks throughout Chicago had created electromagnetic pulses that interfered with Brennan's equipment. The system, already unstable after his death, had reacted catastrophically. The twins had simply been in the wrong place when reality broke. Sandra Harper found some comfort in this knowledge. My boys didn't do anything wrong. They weren't careless or disobedient. They were just children caught in something beyond anyone's understanding. They're victims of science without conscience, progress without precaution. The Grandview Towers case led to international cooperation on temporal crimes. The UN established the Committee for Temporal Ethics, creating guidelines for any research involving space-time manipulation. The Harper twins were posthumously awarded the International Medal of Courage for their unwitting sacrifice that exposed these dangers. In 2025, a memorial museum opened in the rebuilt Grandview Towers. The centerpiece is the preserved parallel elevator, now safely contained within temporal shielding. Visitors can see the space where the twins spent their final days, read their messages, understand their experience. But the most powerful exhibit is a simple display. Nenger's 2 pairs of children's sneakers, size 3, 1 pair red, 1 blue, worn from years of running and playing, suddenly stopped. The museum's advanced technology allows visitors to experience a safe, controlled version of temporal displacement, a few seconds of existing outside normal time, enough to understand the terror the twins must have felt. Most visitors emerge shaken, understanding for the first time what it means to be lost, not just in space, but in time itself. The Harper case changed architecture forever. Buildings now require temporal stability certificates. Construction materials are tested for electromagnetic properties. The International Building Code includes a section specifically addressing temporal safety, informally known as the Harper Codes. No building can be approved without proving it won't accidentally bend space-time. Former Grandview residents formed a unique community. Their shared experience of temporal distortion created bonds that transcended normal relationships. They understood each other in ways no one else could. Annual reunions were held where they compared experiences, trying to piece together the full picture of what the building had done to them. Maria Gonzalez, the twins' former neighbor, revealed she'd been experiencing temporal loops for years, after leaving the building minus living the same day repeatedly, until she learned to break the pattern. I thought I was losing my mind. Now I know the building changed me. Changed all of us. We're temporal survivors, marked by our exposure to Brennan's experiment. The discovery of the twins led to a systematic search of every building Brennan had designed. In his final project, a library in Milwaukee, investigators found his masterwork Mitre reading room, where time moved slower, allowing scholars to study for hours, while only minutes passed outside. It had been operating since 1985, with librarians noting that certain patrons seemed to accomplish impossible amounts of research, but dismissing it as dedication. This room, unlike Grandview, had been perfected. Brennan had learned from his mistakes and created a stable temporal bubble. The government immediately classified it, but rumors persist that it's still used for critical research projects where time is a factor. The Harper family's apartment, 7F, became a shrine within the memorial, preserved exactly as it was in 1987. It shows a moment frozen in time: Me's breakfast dishes in the sink from that morning, the twins' beds unmade, their toys scattered on the floor. Sandra Harper's note on the refrigerator still reads, "Boys' sandwiches in fridge, be good, home by 8 for fireworks. Love, Mom." Visitors often leave flowers, toys, and letters to the twins at the apartment door. Children write messages like, "I would have played with you, and I'm sorry you got lost." The accumulated offerings are preserved in the museum's archive, a testament to how deeply the story of two 8-year-old boys resonates across generations. The scientific community continued to study Brennan's work, trying to understand how a 1970s architect had achieved what modern physics was only beginning to theorize. His equations, when finally decoded, revealed he'd been working from principles that wouldn't be formally discovered until 2020. Either he was a genius beyond measure, or he'd had help from someone Maius or something Maius that understood temporal mechanics. This led to conspiracy theories that Brennan himself was a temporal traveler, that he'd built Grandview Towers as an anchor point for time travel experiments. While officially dismissed, investigators couldn't explain how he'd known things that shouldn't have been known in his era. The twin story took an unexpected turn in 2025 when quantum archaeologists announced they'd detected temporal echoes of the boys still present in the building's electromagnetic field. These weren't ghosts but quantum impressions, moments of their existence preserved in the building's altered space-time. Using advanced equipment, they could reconstruct fragments of the twins' experience. The reconstructed echoes were heartbreaking. Tommy telling jokes to keep Billy calm, Billy sharing his sandwich with Tommy, even though they were both hungry. The boys singing songs their mother had taught them, playing I Spy with the limited view from the elevator. Tommy pretending to be strong while Billy pretended not to be scared, each trying to protect the other. One echo, particularly clear, showed them on what must have been their second day trapped. Tommy was teaching Billy a card trick with an incomplete deck they'd found in the elevator. "When we get out," Tommy's voice echoed across time, "we'll show Mom this trick. She'll be so impressed. She'll forget to be mad we were late." These temporal echoes became part of the memorial, allowing visitors to experience fragments of the twins' final days. Parents found it almost unbearable, but Sandra Harper insisted they remain. People need to understand they weren't just victims, they were children being brave for each other. They were brothers loving each other until the end. The case influenced popular culture profoundly. Books, films, and documentaries explored every angle, but the most impactful was a simple children's book created by Sandra Harper and a local artist, the Elevator Brothers. It told the twins' story in gentle terms, teaching children about safety and the importance of building codes without traumatizing them. Every copy sold contributed to missing children's organizations. By 2026, the Harper Protocol had located 1,847 missing persons who'd been temporarily displaced. Some had been missing for decades, others just days. The oldest case solved was from 1952. Midas, a child who'd vanished from a Chicago park, had been displaced 70 years into the future, arriving scared and confused in 2022. DNA testing reunited him with his younger sister, now 78, who'd never stopped wondering what happened to her big brother. The twins' legacy extended to space exploration. NASA consulted the Grandview research when designing spacecraft, realizing that long-distance space travel might involve similar temporal effects. The Harper safeguards ensure that no astronaut will ever be lost in time the way the twins were lost in that elevator. Educational programs worldwide used the Harper case to teach children about safety. Tommy and Billy's rules became standard in elementary schools. Never go into strange spaces alone. Always tell someone where you're going. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. The twins became safety ambassadors in death, protecting countless children from similar fates. The final scientific report on Grandview Towers, released in 2026, concluded that the building had been a perfect storm of ambition, criminality, and accident. Brennan's genius, the crime family's money, the government's secrecy, and the twins' innocent exploration had combined to create a tragedy that revealed dangers humanity wasn't prepared to face. Dr. Chen's closing statement read, "Tommy and Billy Harper were explorers in the truest sense. They ventured into the unknown and paid the ultimate price. But their sacrifice has given us knowledge that will protect future generations. Every child who comes home safe because of temporal detection protocols owes a debt to two boys who just wanted to see fireworks with their mom." Sandra Harper lived to see the first anniversary of the memorial's opening. At 75, she cut the ribbon on the Harper Center for Missing Children, built with donations from around the world. Her speech was simple. "My boys loved adventures. Their last adventure saved lives. They would be proud. I'm proud. Thank you for not forgetting them." She passed away peacefully 3 months later, July 4th, 2027, exactly 40 years after her boys vanished. Her last words, according to the nurse present, "I hear them laughing. They're saying, 'Come on, Mom. The fireworks are starting.'" When she was buried between her sons, the family reunited after 4 decades apart. The Harper twins' story ends not with their death, but with their impact. Every building made safer, every missing child found, every temporal anomaly detected before it can claim victims, all trace back to 2 8-year-old boys who pressed an elevator button in 1987. Their names are carved in stone at the memorial, but they're written in something more permanent: the laws, protocols, and safeguards that ensure no child will ever be lost the way they were. Tommy and Billy Harper entered an elevator as boys. They emerged as guardians protecting children they'll never meet from dangers they never understood. In the rebuilt Grandview Towers, Apartment 7F is never rented. It remains the Harper home, waiting for boys who will never come home, but who, in a way, never left. Every July 4th at 3:47 p.m., the elevators in the building stop for exactly 47 seconds. In that silence, residents remember two boys who got lost trying to go home and, in being found, helped the whole world find its way to safety. The last entry in the official case file reads, Tommy and Billy Harper, born January 15, 1979, disappeared July 4, 1987, found October 15, 2023, cause of death, temporal displacement resulting in asphyxiation, status case closed, impact immeasurable. Two boys who played in hallways and loved their mother changed the world by getting lost. They are found now. They are home. They are eternal.